would like to increase your sales by doing more business with engineering companies? Yes, that's great, because our next speaker is going to show us just how to do that. Our speaker is the president and CEO of his company, Reiss Engineering. He has several locations throughout Central Florida, locations in the Bahamas, and is licensed in 9 other states. Because of his vast experience, Dr. Reiss is often asked to contribute to leading industry shows and conferences with either personal presentations or submissions of technical papers. He is really the guru in the engineering business. After all, he does have 4 degrees in engineering, followed by a PhD in engineering. It was my good fortune to have him in my Dale Carnegie class about 2 years ago. And as a result of his experience in the Dale Carnegie course, he decided that he wanted to train his entire company. Now, at the time, I thought, well, it's just in the Dale Carnegie course. Well, no. He trained in all 4 core programs of course. And continues to do it on a regular basis. As he hires new people, they go through our training. It's mandatory in his company. Dr. Reiss has built a solid reputation for his talent to create innovative solutions and the knowledge to deliver real-world results on civil engineering, construction management, and land development projects, and water treatment. He has built a record of reliability and provides superior service to his many clients. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor and my pleasure to present to you Dr. Robert Reiss.
Dale Carnegie family, thank you, Dr. Bev, for that introduction. I am looking forward to sharing some thoughts with you today, but first let's get started with asking ourselves the question, what is that? And what does it have to do with this event here at Dale Carnegie? That is a drinking water treatment plant in Florida that provides water to local communities, homes and businesses that my company participated in the design of. Well, that's great, but what does it have to do with Dale Carnegie? There is a long history, as Dr. Pennacchini mentioned, of Reiss Engineering and Dale Carnegie working together. So I'm here to share that story with you today and also share with you how I believe it applies to you. A bit of background on my firm. I founded it in 1998. 5 offices throughout Florida and the Bahamas. I'm originally from the Bahamas, Freeport. And our corporate headquarters are here in the Orlando area. Right now we have over 50 staff. And we're a full-service engineering firm providing planning, design, and construction inspection. I want to talk about how our company functions. We heard the previous presenter talking about methods to run your business. I'll share a little bit about how my business operates. We're a private for-profit engineering firm. That means we need to go out and sell the work, right? Get that relationship built. Once we get that lead, we need to assign a client manager. And that client manager has to work with that client and figure out what their specific needs are, and they come up with an engineering project that's needed. We assign a project manager from within our firm, and that project manager leads that effort on that task. And underneath them, they have engineers on their team that are completing the work. And supporting those engineers with the IT department and finance and the administrative department. And they need to make sure they provide their support that's needed for those that engineering team to get their work done. And there's one common thread that runs through that entire process that must happen and must happen effectively for us to achieve the objectives we're looking to achieve. Human relations. At any point in time, if there's a break in the chain, where those folks do not understand how to interact with others and relate to others, we have a challenge and we have a problem. Usually my workload goes up. So, I had a situation where we had some folks that were working well and others that weren't. And this guy was so-so at the time. Jim Muir, he was my marketing department manager, an engineer. He was responsible for getting those engineering proposals out. And in 2008, he came to me and the supervisor and said, for my professional development needs, I'd like to take a course with Dale Carnegie. And of course, we asked him the obvious question, why do you want to take a course with Dale? Who's Dale? And what are you going to learn? And is it a neighbor of yours? Or no. He explained to us human relations principles and the communication skill sets that would be associated with the Dale Carnegie course. And as good engineers, what do you suppose we asked him? Why do we need all these human relations skill sets? Don't you want another engineering degree? We'll fund that. But nevertheless, he persisted and he prevailed. So we funded him attending the course, and we had the good fortune of him being trained by Dr. Pennacchini. When he came back from the course, he was very enthusiastic, said he got a whole lot out of it. And his way of interacting with us changed, his behavior changed, his corporate performance improved. And I would ask him, I'd say, Jim, what's happened? And he would say, well, remember that Dale Carnegie course? Was it my leadership? Is it my management skills? No, remember that Dale Carnegie course? You have the golden book, you carry that around? But over the next several years, he would mention every now and then, I learned a lot in that Dale Carnegie course. That was great, super. Fast forward a couple years, I had another staff member that needed some attention given to his professional development. That was this guy. And I was trying to figure out what I could do for professional development. And I remember over the previous several years, Jim saying, I learned a lot out of that Dale Carnegie course. And I thought, okay, we'll see what it's all about. And I also had the good fortune of having Dr. Pennacchini as my instructor. Now, what was the experience like for me? I learned an awful lot. It was peeling an onion. I learned so much about me, not about others. For me, at least, who was a very effective salesman for the company, I learned about me. I learned about what I was comfortable with, what I was uncomfortable with. An example of that. The evening Dr. Bev said at the end of the class, next week, you'll be presenting on an accomplishment. I almost started crying. Because it was so terrifying to me to not talk about the company, but to talk about me. What a revelation that was. That I had this block about myself and my own accomplishments, and then I started thinking, well, how does that affect my behavior? How does that affect how I interact with others? How does that affect how I relate to other people's accomplishments? There was just a whole host of experiences I had through that course that helped me understand me. So I got great benefit out of it. And coming out of that class, the question was, what do I do next? Well, it's great that Jim got training, and it's great that I got training. I trained the whole company on all the programs. Because as that workflow sheet showed, we must be able to, as engineers, relate to others. And that certainly wasn't why we went to engineering school. Here are the results. Since 2010, our company has doubled from 25 to 50 people. That's essentially a doubling in revenue. We've also moved mid-level technical staff into team leader and management positions. And it's freed up myself and my 2 vice presidents to help grow the firm. Now, who is one of those 2 vice presidents? Jim Muir. And soon to be a shareholder by the end of this year. put in perspective here, the housing market collapse in Florida was devastating to the construction industry and engineering industry. Multiple competitors ceased to exist. Professional Engineering Corporation, 50-year firm, odd business. All the firms cutting staff. Really, really terrible time in our industry and for the state overall. So the trough was about 2009, 2010, and things are a little bit better now. We doubled in size. Now, how about you? Let's talk about you. I promised we would talk about how I think this experience relates to you. Let's talk about the engineering industry, okay? 90,000 private engineering firms in the United States. Private engineering firms trying to make money the same way I described relative to the workflow of my firm. The average size is 8 to 9 people. There are lots of 10, 20, 30, 50 person engineering firms in the United States that certainly would not have in-house training, right? Any professional development, any training they would come from external sources. Lots and lots of engineering firms. And they typically have a seller-door model. Because to sell engineering, you need to know engineering. So you have people that are trained technically that you're asking to engage in human relations and find that in one person. So I just want to share with you an item just to help you put that into perspective. You see the challenge that I face? And the opportunity for you? So here's what happens with an engineer. They go to school 5 to 7 years. Typical bachelor's in engineering, 5 years, 2 years for a master's. We typically only hire people with masters. So they have 7 years of experience, or 7 years of training, education. And then they get another 5 to 7 or so years where they are asked to do this strange thing off to the right here. What is that? That's a blueprint. That's a design drawing of a pump station. So there's pumps here, there's valves here, there's pipes here, there's flanges, there's bolts, there's all kinds of things going on that they have to learn in excruciating detail in school, and even more so when they come on board. So they will immerse themselves in their cubicle or office or corner for 5, 6, 7 years designing these pump stations, tanks, all the other stuff. Detailed material. And then they're going to have the good fortune 10 to 15 years down the road where the client manager says, you know what? Instead of me explaining this pump station to the client, why don't you come along to the meeting with me? And what's the expectation of that person? To engage in active listening, to communicate in the other person's language, etc. Now, what are the chances? Really? Has this person been set up for success? So the challenge for engineering firms is to transition their technical staff to management, to project management, client management, and gosh forbid, business development. And my proposal to you, my offer to you is recognize the value that you bring and the need that not just the engineering but other technical professional industries have, the great need that they have to link up with the type of value that you bring to create a winning formula. With that, I'm available for questions. I have about 7 or 8 minutes for questions. If we have...
Who has the first question? I Thank you for your remarks. My curiosity is, as you tried to roll that out in your firm, what type of barriers did you have to overcome? How did you, quote unquote, sell that to the rest of the engineers in your firm?
The question is, what were the barriers I faced with my staff? How did I roll that out to my firm? You can probably imagine the barriers I faced. A lot of confusion about the fact that we have always said that you've chosen to work in a private for-profit firm and we have a seller-doer model, to us actually putting it in place through this type of training. Have they been encouraged and trained in various internal methods in the past? Sure. But to actually be asked to immerse yourself in these types of training courses is absolutely terrifying to most of my staff, frankly. I mean, absolutely terrifying. And I think, I can't speak for her, but I suspect Dr. Bev got some of the most challenging clients ever from my firm. And one of the things about the engineering mindset is it's, if you look at personality profiles, it's black and white. An engineer knows it. He's done the math, he's done the equation, he knows it. So when they decide they don't need it, they don't need it. So it's not just passive resistance in the classroom, it can sometimes be active. And I did get feedback with some people that were very actively attempting to disrupt the course, and what course it was. So, but as was mentioned, I think the previous speaker talked a little bit about how choices were made to have someone be a part of the program. With our firm, I chose. So, and they stayed in the course.
So, knowing how an engineer thinks, what would be the one or two best approaches we could use to connect with engineering firms and the CEO, the president, the boss? What's the best idea we could approach him with?
The question is, what's the best idea that you could use to approach a manager within an engineering firm or president? The best approach certainly would be to see it from our perspective from the get-go, right? You have knowledge from this presentation, how to see it from the seat we sit in. The seat we sit in private engineering firms is seller-doer model. It's not that there aren't some engineers that truly just do engineering their whole career. There's a vast majority of them in these firms that really do need to engage with the client and come to meetings and communicate. So the best way to approach a manager or a CEO or president of an engineering firm is to first ask open-ended questions. Do you have a seller-doer model? Do you have staff that interact with clients that are also technically trained? Are the engineers interacting with clients? And it's going to be the obvious yes, yes, yes to all of that. And then you just follow up with a second question, which is, do you ever run into issues where your engineering/sales force doesn't understand the client's needs or respond to the client effectively? Do you ever have responsiveness or clarity of communication type of challenges? And the answer to that's going to be yes, yes, yes. And then third step is, I got this friend Dale. That would be my recommendation. Who has the next question?
We find a big trend in engineering firms is business development for non-traditional sales. And our challenge that we're finding is keeping them accountable once they get back into the mode of project work, right? So they now are in project mode and they forget about the business development piece. What advice do you have for helping their structure keep more accountable to business development?
And the question is relative to engineers that have been put in a business development role for a period of time and challenges getting them back into the technical production. How do you help facilitate that or manage that? In our firm, we don't have that issue particularly because everyone has a billability goal. And billable meaning you're working on a build project doing engineering production. So about the lowest goal we have is about 35%. So 35% annual of the 2,080 hours in a year need to go to production. So everybody's at least a third of their time spent on engineering. If there is a firm that's swung to where they have a lot of people in business development, or a person or more in business development, they don't want to come back into the technical area, or they're having challenges with it. That's, I think, really an interesting situation, because they will have the technical background and know how to do it. They may just have found their passion and love. And I don't, there's nothing jumping out at me about a Dale Carnegie program, given that you're actually asking them to get back in the cubicle and do engineering. So I'm not sure that there would be a direct connection that I can see with your programs. I love people. I love sales. So I might be a challenging person for an employer. They told me to get back to the Greek stuff. So probably go find another sales job. So, yes, sir.
Hi there. Great. Oh, sorry. Yvonne from Toronto. I was watching the presentation, and it took about 2 years between your first employee until you took the course. That's a 2-year time, and I'm sure if we asked you now if you could have taken it in 2008, you would have said, absolutely, exactly. What would you recommend to the sales and the trainers here to help us reduce that time, to spread within an organization, to show them the benefits faster, so our conversions can be faster?
And the question is, how do we get from that place of first person being exposed to Dale Carnegie within a firm all the way to a greater understanding of the benefit and value, and accelerate that process? I think it really comes back to some of the things that I believe John was speaking about earlier, about your planning for survey results and integration of linking the experience of the employee with management's understanding of the benefit that was gained. Had there been some process besides Jim's anecdotal comments to me about what he got out of the class for me to better understand, was it my great job at leadership, or was it that golden book he carted around every meeting? You know, it's hard to understand exactly how things came to be. So I think getting to management and giving them some specifics are important. We're out of time. I'm going to leave you with one last piece of information for you to truly understand the engineering mindset.
I'm worried about little Gilbert. He's not like other kids.
What do you mean?
Yesterday, I left him alone for a minute, and he disassembled the TV, our clock, and the stereo.
That's perfectly normal. Kids take things apart.
Oh. The part that worries me is he used the components to build a ham radio set.
Oh dear.
Is that bad?
Normally I'd want to run an EEG on it, but the machine isn't working. It's worse than I feared.
What is it?
I'm afraid your son has the knack.
The knack?
The knack. It's a rare condition characterized by an extreme intuition about all things mechanical and electrical, and utter social ineptitude.
Can we lead a normal life?
No.
Ladies and gentlemen.